Millionaire mocks humble physical therapist, but is shocked when his wheelchair-bound daughter takes her first steps, a warning. The name Augusto Mello carries weight. He's the kind of man who owns boardrooms with just a glance, CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the country, feared in business, respected by the elite, and entirely unfamiliar with the word no. Cold, impatient, and used to solving everything with money, Augusto commands attention wherever he goes. But that control crumbles the day his 7-year-old daughter, Clara Mello, survives a tragic car accident that leaves her unable to walk. Since that moment, Augusto becomes even more distant, emotionally locked away, refusing to show pain. He doesn't cry, he doesn't hug. Instead, he throws money at every solution he can find. He brings Clara to top-tier doctors, equips her with imported machinery, and even flies her to European specialists, but none of it works. Clara remains in her wheelchair, her world growing smaller while her father's frustration grows in silence. It's Patricia, his ex-wife and Clara's mother, who dares to suggest something different. She gently proposes that Augusto take Clara to a small, humble clinic run by a physical therapist named Júlia Almeida, someone she's heard about through friends. They say she has a gift, Patricia tells him. Augusto scoffs. A miracle worker now, he mocks, his voice dripping with sarcasm. But later that night, he looks at Clara, really looks, and notices something in her eyes he hasn't seen in months. Hope. It's faint, but it's there. That's what makes him pause. Against his better judgment, he schedules an evaluation at Julia's clinic. He doesn't expect results. In fact, deep down, he's certain it'll be a waste of time. After all, if the best specialists in the world couldn't help Clara, how could some no-name therapist in a modest neighborhood do any better? Augusto's luxury car pulls up to a modest building tucked between a bakery and an old stationery store. The clinic's facade is outdated, lacking polish, grandeur, or any sign that someone of his status should be here. He narrows his eyes in disapproval. With a sigh, he steps out, lifts Clara from the back seat like one might carry a fragile responsibility, and carries her toward the entrance. The moment they walk in, they're greeted by a woman with warm eyes, calm posture, and a voice that speaks softly, yet with assurance. Júlia Almeida isn't wearing anything fancy, just a clean white coat and a modest outfit underneath. Augusto barely acknowledges her welcome. Instead, his eyes scan the space. No certificates on the wall, no expensive equipment, no polished glass or marble floors. Just clean tile, basic furniture, and toys tucked into a corner. His impatience grows with every second. With Clara still on his lap, he breaks the silence. "Where are your degrees?" he asks, almost laughing. "Are you even certified? Is this a clinic or someone's basement?" Júlia doesn't flinch. She calmly explains that she prefers to keep the walls free of distractions, so her patients feel at home instead of judged. Augusto shakes his head, muttering under his breath. Then louder he says, "I've taken my daughter to the best in the world, and now I'm supposed to trust this?" Clara listens without speaking, clutching her favorite doll, her big eyes fixed on Júlia's calm demeanor. Even though she's just a child, she senses something different in this woman. Augusto sits in the corner, arms crossed, ready to check off this visit as another failed attempt. What he doesn't realize is that he's about to witness something no amount of money could ever buy. The session begins under a tense silence. Clara stays quiet, eyes moving carefully with each step that Júlia takes around the small room. Augusto remains detached in the corner, scrolling endlessly on his phone, sighing with impatience every few minutes. He doesn't look up, doesn't engage, doesn't believe. To him, this is just one more pointless appointment in a growing list of failures. But Júlia moves differently. She doesn't force exercises or give out medical jargon. Instead, she kneels beside Clara's wheelchair, bringing herself to the girl's eye level. Her voice is soft, warm, and full of care. She asks about Clara's favorite toys, what she used to enjoy doing before the accident, what she misses most. Slowly, hesitantly, Clara begins to answer. Her words come quietly, but there's a flicker of something, a spark, trying to come back to life. Júlia turns the session into a playful activity. She uses colorful ribbons, soft cushions, and simple objects to encourage movement. To Augusto, it looks amateurish. He scoffs silently, watching his daughter respond to things that don't resemble anything he's seen in elite hospitals. But what he doesn't understand is that Júlia isn't treating Clara's legs. She's reaching her heart. Every little movement Clara makes is met with praise, with gentle encouragement, with joy. Júlia isn't looking for miracles today. She's building trust one moment at a time, and Clara senses it. Her small body begins to respond, almost without her noticing. The stiffness eases, her arms stretch further, her smile returns. Júlia notices everything but says nothing. She simply continues, as if guiding a melody only she can hear. And in that room, filled with so little, something powerful begins to take root. Belief. The days that follow fall into a rhythm. Augusto arrives at the clinic each afternoon, always punctual, always annoyed. He complains about traffic, the lack of air conditioning, the old elevator. Yet he keeps coming back. Clara, on the other hand, begins to look forward to each session. As soon as they walk through the clinic door, she wheels herself eagerly toward Júlia, smiling more freely with each visit. What started as simple sessions slowly becomes something else. Clara opens up, her confidence grows. Júlia becomes more than just a therapist. She becomes a safe place, a guiding hand, a believer. All while Augusto stays in his usual spot, in the corner, pretending not to notice the transformation unfolding in front of him. But something is changing. His posture isn't as stiff. He scrolls less. His eyes lift more often. He watches. One afternoon, something unexpected happens. Clara loses her balance while trying a new movement. She falls slightly onto a mat and bursts into tears. Instantly, Augusto stands up, panic in his voice. "That's enough! I knew this was too risky," he barks. But before he can reach his daughter, Júlia steps in. She kneels beside Clara, gently takes her hand and speaks softly. "You don't need to be afraid of falling, Clara. I'm here with you. And more importantly, you can do this." Clara stares at her through tear-filled eyes. Then she nods. She wipes her face, steadies herself and tries again. And this time, she succeeds. It's a small step, a simple movement, but emotionally it's monumental. In that moment, Augusto doesn't speak. He doesn't move. He just watches. And, for the first time, something cracks open inside him. Doubt, not about Júlia, but about himself. The rain taps lightly against the windshield as Augusto sits in traffic, more agitated than usual. His phone buzzes with non-stop calls, one from his logistics director, another from a supplier, then another from his lawyer. He barks orders, shifts blame, and curses under his breath about the driver being 3 minutes late. Clara sits quietly in the back seat, watching the familiar pattern play out. But something's changed. She no longer asks her father to carry her. Instead, when they arrive at the clinic, she opens the door herself and wheels down the ramp with quiet pride. Augusto doesn't even notice. He's still shouting into the phone when they enter the building. Júlia greets them with a soft smile and extends her hand. Augusto ignores it. But Clara wraps her arms around the therapist immediately, glowing with anticipation. Júlia kneels and whispers something in her ear. Clara nods. Today will be different. Inside the session room, Júlia lays out new materials, non-slip mats, colorful support ropes, a few toys placed carefully along the edges. Augusto raises an eyebrow but says nothing. He plants himself in the usual corner, phone in hand, mind elsewhere. Meanwhile, Clara positions herself beside the ropes, Her hands tremble slightly as she takes hold. Julia's voice is steady, guiding her through each breath, each movement. Clara's expression is focused, brave. With effort, she pulls herself upward, first one foot, then balance. Her legs wobble, but she doesn't stop. Then, it happens. Clara stands, not for a second or two, but fully upright. Augusto hears the soft pull of the rope, but doesn't react until he hears her voice. "Dad, look at me." He lifts his eyes. For a moment, the world around him disappears. Clara is standing, and everything he thought he knew collapses. For a few seconds, Augusto forgets how to breathe. The phone slips from his hand and crashes to the floor, but he doesn't even flinch. All he can see is Clara standing, her small frame trembling, her eyes glistening, her hands gripping the ropes like they're her lifeline. Then she takes a step. It's unsteady, barely more than a shuffle, but it's real. Another follows and another. Julia moves back, giving space. Augusto falls to his knees on the padded floor, eyes wide, tears already forming. Clara moves toward him, arms open, and collapses into his embrace. He holds her like he's trying to keep her from disappearing, like he's afraid it's all a dream. He buries his face in her shoulder, silent tears rolling down his face. She giggles and whispers, "I knew I could do it." It's not just her legs that are healing, it's everything. For the first time in years, Augusto doesn't have anything to say. No demands, no criticisms, no instructions. He just looks at Julia, and in that look is a mix of disbelief, humility, and deep, wordless gratitude. She stands quietly by, watching the moment unfold, eyes glassy but composed. She knows better than to explain it. There are things that can't be measured in charts or machines, things that can't be taught in medical school. What just happened wasn't about perfect technique or money. It was about trust, patience, and love. Augusto wipes his face, nods slightly in her direction, but says nothing. In that silence, something shifts. The powerful businessman, who once dismissed everything that didn't come with a price tag, is now facing a truth he can't control. Some miracles don't come wrapped in luxury. They come quietly, through hands that simply refuse to give up. The next morning, Augusto Mello returns to the clinic. But he's no longer the same man. He wears the same tailored suit, steps out of the same luxury car, but his posture is softer, slower, almost uncertain. In his hands, he carries a small box wrapped in brown paper and a bouquet of fresh flowers. As he walks through the familiar entrance, Julia is tidying up some equipment near the reception desk. She sees him but doesn't speak. Clara rushes ahead, hugging Julia like she always does, but quickly senses something different and steps aside. Augusto takes a deep breath and steps forward. "I judged you," he says, his voice rough with emotion. "And I was wrong. I spent all this time trying to buy a cure with money, and it turns out what my daughter needed couldn't be bought at all." He hands Julia the gifts, along with a thick envelope. "I want to help you expand the clinic, bring in new equipment, whatever you need. You deserve it." Julia accepts the box with gratitude, smells the flowers, and then gently returns the envelope to his hands. "Thank you, Mr. Mello, but that's not why I do this," she says softly. "This clinic doesn't need to be the biggest or the most modern. It just needs to stay a place where people still believe in what no one else dares to." Augusto stands in silence, the envelope still in his hands, unsure of what to do. For once, he simply nods. Not as a CEO, but as a father who's been humbled. On their way out, he watches as Clara walks slowly, using a colorful walker, her smile radiant, each step a small miracle. He doesn't rush her, he doesn't lift her, he simply watches and smiles, not with pride but with peace. At the door, he feels something he hasn't in years, lightness. Because in that small, quiet clinic, he didn't just witness his daughter's healing. He experienced his own. And in that silence, something sacred settles in. Some things, the most important things, can't be bought. They must be felt, lived, and finally, understood. That was today's story. Drop the name of your city in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the perfect time to do it. Don't forget to share this video with more people. I'll see you in the next one.